Okay, we're live. All right, so welcome back to the Jobs, Careers, and Future of Work podcast. I'm Brandon Sanger, and I'm here with my co-hosts Bill Golden and Suzanne Jawed. And today we're each going to be talking about our own things, but they all kind of correlate. So what I'm going to be talking about is trends of interns in the job market for recent graduates. Suzanne is going to delve into the five whys approach in the context of recruiting, and Bill is going to revolve around two key points: market value and adapting to change. Does anybody have any comments before I get started into my stuff?
No, hey,
No.
let's talk
Okay.
about jobs. Always about jobs. If
Okay.
we don't
So
have it, we know where to find who has that job. Probably we
okay.
know.
So what I wanted to do here, I didn't know much about internships. I didn't look into them too much before doing research for this. So I just looked at different articles online. So I'm just going to read off some of the stuff that I found interesting and relevant and ask you questions about it to see what you think. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Plan.
Okay. So internships are gaining popularity among college students. In 2022, about 22% of college students were participating in internships, and out of those, 60% of them received compensation. And what internships do for students is play a significant role in securing job opportunities post graduation. And what's really good about them is that they enhance job success rates because of the skills that students acquire through the process. And with these gained skills, candidates with the internship experience can also have a better chance of getting a higher salary. So you get extra skills and higher salary and more security of actually being able to get a job after college. So it's a really good idea to get an internship.
Did you
Right
learn
now,
anything about when the best time of the year is to apply for an internship?
it's usually the summer before. So if it's 2023 right now, you want to be applying for 2024's like probably a couple months ago. I mean, it's never too early, but you definitely want to do it too late because they're super competitive.
And they usually close out. I know in a lot of corporate industries, they usually close out in December and then they start sending offer letters in early January for that summer.
Yeah.
Now, this
So
morning I helped someone on LinkedIn. They have a son that's graduating in December, and they wanted to know what internships I could identify. So let me recommend Raytheon right off the bat. Raytheon has paid internships year round. This morning, I was able to identify, I believe they had 488 internships across the USA in many different fields.
well, so that would be IT and cybersecurity, that kind of area, right?
Accounting, finance, logistics, energy resource management,
So a
green
little bit of everything.
technology. Yeah, I think that you'll find, and Raytheon, many people think of Raytheon as primarily being in the defense industry, but Raytheon has been and is huge in energy management and a number of other fields. So I would just, you could just Google Raytheon or RTX internship opportunities, and you're going to find that in your browser really quick.
That's a really good suggestion. And that leads into what I was going to say next. Right now, the current trend among internship opportunities is mostly in hospitality, finance, accounting, engineering, business admin, and sales. So, um, tr- the tech world is going through a few problems right now because they're looking for qualified people, and there's not that many of them. There's a bunch of recent college graduates, but they want people with 10 years of experience, and the people with 10 years of experience left during COVID because they want more pay or they don't want to work in the office. So it might not be a bad idea for people to get experience in one of those under other industries that I mentioned to get the skills required. Um, but an internship anywhere wouldn't hurt. So I wanted to ask both of you guys if you had any recommendations of how people would set themselves up to go into the tech world to get the kind of qualifications that they need to eventually be proficient at their job and get jobs.
Suzanne, why don't you go first? That way it gives me a chance to think of an answer.
Sure. I think starting off, I think internships definitely do help, but also there are a lot of vast opportunities to gain certifications, whether it's AWS certification through online courses or through their university program. A lot of universities have have like workshops on help with that. And I think that's the best way to kind of showcase certain technical skills is to get that certification prior. A lot of times, students don't have that experience, that vast experience that's required. But if they've done a type of lab or project within their core study, that should also be showcased on their resume because that gives to other people that are looking at their resume that, yeah, they have this experience, such as an I'll give you an example, an AI project that they've done, um, or a Splunk project, or a Scrum type of a project that they've done. If they showcase that on their resume, it's a better chance that they'll get a job that's basically matches that technical experience, and they can then basically learn from that and expand on that with an internship or a new position. So take advantage, I think, for students to take advantage of these certification opportunities. There's a lot of variety on LinkedIn as well. And then there's also programs within course studies within different universities that help students obtain those certain technical certifications.
And on that, so Suzanne mentioned certifications. That's really, really important because there are a lot of technical people. They may get all the way through schooling. And when they say, oh, I'd like to be cyber, I'd like to be this. And you say, cool, what certification do you have? And it's like, well, didn't really get one. I didn't need one. That's not a good answer. But uh, and it's somewhat an acceptable answer, but it's not a good answer because most employers are looking to put you to work now. You can go to Google. So if you Google certifications, you will find that Google offers a wide range of certifications, and there are several others that do as well. And these certifications, they may not be the highest level, but they're becoming more commonly accepted. They're often free or they're very inexpensive. So Suzanne mentioned Scrum. Scrum masters are the masters of chaos, and they often make quite a bit of money. That certification takes some time and effort and money as well. But there are other certifications very similar. So if you're a student, begin with Google, and you can find some others. But I would encourage you that there are many different certifications across the board, and there are many, many internships beyond technology. Too often, I think people focus on technology, 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 and reality is internships exist for many different things. Whether you're mechanically inclined, environmentally inclined, etc. And one of the biggest values of internships is, I would say most people who, whatever degree they get, they are not going to work in the field that they studied for. Internships help you discover reality. And reality is that when people get to a particular job or they begin to explore the world, they say, well, gosh darn it, I just spent 4 years studying or 2 years studying, and that seems like a whole lot more fun. So internships are also good for that. And who you meet, the old thing about who you meet matters. That is true. That doesn't mean that's a guarantee of a job, but who you meet, their perspective, because you're going to meet others that have gone through life, and they basically say, that's not a bad path, but there's a dead end at the end. Consider this, or consider a different pathway.
All
Right,
right. Well,
absolutely.
um, sorry. So yeah, moving on from the internships, I wanted to talk about the recent grad jobs because they kind of progress naturally together. So I read that Monster.com revealed that 75% of newly grads are worried about the current economy and how it's going to affect their jobs. And that's with good reason because post COVID, the Federal Reserve increased interest rates like 10 times for certain um, organizations and industries, and that caused job growth to slow down. So this has particularly affected the tech sector, and employers in this industry are struggling to find workers.
Well, that was
Also,
their goal. Their goal was to make hiring slow down.
why
It
was that?
hasn't. Yeah, and there's some strangeness about the current job market, but forgive me for jumping in.
Okay, that's all good. According to LinkedIn, overall hiring has dropped 29% since April of 2022, and hiring for entry-level positions requiring a college degree dropped by 32%, which is even higher. So it's harder than ever before for recent grads to get jobs, and what do they do? Scott Dabrowski, I read in an article, who is Indeed's career trends expert, suggests that graduates focus on building skills and gaining experience rather than fixating on a specific job title and trying to become as versatile and open to opportunities as they can be. And what I wanted to ask you guys, and this relates back to the internships, is what kind of skills and experiences do you recommend that people get into to make themselves as marketable as possible for employers?
Let me jump in there about one of the things. So I would tell you those numbers about the number of jobs that have decreased, that does not apply to the general population. That may apply to new grads who are walking out with a diploma and starting a new job, in that they're traditionally, at least in the millennials, discovered that's no longer true. Until the great crash of 2008, 2009, it was very common for employers to meet college grads kind of 5 minutes after or even just before they graduate and say, I've got this great job, you've got this degree, let's get the party started. But yeah, because jobs have just been booming. And one of the biggest complaints is we can't find people. That takes us to what skills do you need? One of the things to keep in mind is we have discovered there are a lot of jobs where a college degree does not matter. And there are some people out there saying, why focus on the college degree? I would tell you a college degree does matter, but keep in mind that what you study is not necessarily where you're going to end up. And the job that you get may not need that college degree. What a college degree basically does, it means that you understand basic research, you understand that things are related, you understand that the world is a system of systems and that they all come together, and hopefully you've developed some logic and reasoning and math. Uh, Math can be algebra. You actually use algebra, although most people don't think you do. But anyway, the short version is realize that the world is ever changing. And by ever changing, it can sometimes change within 6 months for certain career fields. That's why cyber, quick, good number. How many cyber certifications are there? Dun, dun, dun. There are over 600 cyber certifications, and they're creating more daily. And why is that? It's because everything we do in each and every way, whether it's computers, our cell phones, our smart watches, we're all interconnected. And there are just so many ways that we can be screwed with. So, that's opportunities. Think about life and how you interact with products, services, other individuals, and organizations. And that's all of my report.
All right, Suzanne, same question for you. As a recruiter, you get a resume from a recent college graduate and they have pretty much no work experience, but maybe they have an internship. What would you say would be the best thing that you could see where you look at it and you're like, okay, I might be able to get something for you? What increases their chances the most of getting a job?
So no experience is actually good because if they have a degree in a technical discipline, then automatically they'll be considered for a technical entry level role. Now, with saying that, the job market is a little tricky when it comes to certain disciplines of bachelor degrees, whether it's technical discipline or liberal arts. But the fact that people interns in not interns but new grads don't have that experience, that's fine as long as they're geared towards graduating with a degree in whatever discipline they have. That can count towards years of experience as well, because if you see a lot of the job descriptions, they will state that bachelor's degree or 10 years of experience in lieu of bachelor's degree. Now, if you have that bachelor's degree, you don't need that 10 years of experience. You just need that bachelor's degree in a technical discipline. Or if you have like a bachelor's in psychology and you have a human resource emphasis, or a minor in human resources, you'll be you'll also be put in a pool for jobs that don't require that specific technical discipline, but they'll require business development, or they'll require someone like yourself, a coordinator, someone who can be vouched for specific jobs that don't entail specific technical skills, but then you grow your technical skills while you're attaining that job or while you're working with that job. But it's actually great to see that type of resume with no experience, because that bachelor's degree, that degree that you're working on, will help you get that position. And then that'll help you gain experience. So what it's saying is basically your bachelor's degree is it's kind of like your experience. You're certified in that area. You've worked on projects. You've completed a 4-year degree. That says a lot.
Okay, well, that's about all I had to talk about with internships and recent grads. So, Suzanne, do you want to take it away with the 5 whys approach to recruiting?
So, 5 whys is a very interesting approach. Not a lot of people have heard about it, but a lot of times there's 5 whys can basically belong to any type of discipline. It can belong to recruiting, it can belong to business development, it can belong to different project management disciplines. Basically, I read an article. It's a Forbes article on understanding the 5 whys, on how to successfully integrate this tool into your business. So I found out a lot of great information, just fun facts about the 5 whys. So the 5 whys technique was developed in Japan, and it originated in Japan as a part of the Toyota production system. So basically, the person who actually invented the Toyota production system, he developed this 5 whys rule, and it's basically emphasizing continuous improvement, problem solving, and efficiency in production by asking why repeatedly to get to the heart of the issue. So over time, it's been used widely in various industries and business sectors as like a valuable tool for getting to the root cause of what's going on within a company. For instance, like I'll give you an example. There's a book called The 7-Day Weekend, and it's a really interesting book. It's by Ricardo Semler, and he basically lists the 3 whys methodology. So it's a part of the 5 whys, and he basically talks about it's asking why multiple times to delve into deeper the root cause of all the issues that are affecting production in a company, that are affecting recruiting, that are affecting setting effective goals or meeting metrics for different business processes. So basically, it's asking why to uncover what the actual problem is. And this was developed through a Kaizen approach, which is like a Japanese term that means change for better or continuous improvement. And the Kaizen approach is also in a lot of the Lean Sigma recruiting methodologies, and a lot of in the PMP course, they also have that discipline. So it's a really good tool to change for the better. And with recruiting, we're always looking for change. We're always looking to change to make sure that we continuously improve, that we have employee involvement, and that there are standardized tools in helping us, get to that goal or get to that initiative. And so, for instance, so you have to basically create a problem. And if there's a problem in an industry, you have to ask 5 questions on what that problem entails and why is that problem happening. Why is it consistent all the time that we're not able to solve the problem? So we have to ask why. And it's just kind of doing a deep dive into that problem or that situation. So there's
So
an
it's a
example.
systemic approach then to understanding or coming up with answers.
Absolutely. So, for instance, in the article, it also approached the problem is there's a high turnover among new hires. So, why is there a high turnover among new hires? So, let's ask 5 questions. And in the article, it basically asks these 5 questions for the high turnover problem among new hires. One is, why are new hires leaving? Because they are not finding the work fulfilling. And that happens a lot of times where you find a job and you meet the requirements for the job, but then you feel like it's just not a fit for you.
You learn that your degree
Right.
either maybe did not prepare you, or
Mhm.
if that's what my degree, the path it's going to take me, no, thank you.
Absolutely. And then the second question is, why are they not finding the work fulfilling? And a lot of the employees said because they lack the necessary skills for that job. So even though that job entails, or the job description is basically, they meet the candidate meets the requirements, it's still not exactly what they thought the skills would require. The third question is, why do they lack the necessary skills? And a lot of the candidates said that because the recruitment process doesn't adequately assess their qualifications. Well, then we turn to the fourth question: why doesn't the recruitment process assess qualifications effectively?
Yeah, the
Because,
program manager wrote the job description.
right, exactly, because it relies too heavily on traditional interviews. Um, there's no actual interview where it's specific to that position. And not saying that this is always the case, it's not, honestly. Um, but sometimes it is, and sometimes it's just too traditional of an approach with the recruiting process. And the fifth question delves into, why does the process rely on traditional interviews in the first place? And so so they answered basically, because that's how it's always been done and there's a resistance to change. Well, that has to change altogether. Um, as companies, we can't have that specific, just old fashioned way of asking questions. We have to really get into the nitty gritty of, what would you do? What would the candidate do in this such and such situation? With this job, you may be required to travel, or you may be required to head a team of 3 to 4 individuals and lead the process in such and such way. So, with interviewing and recruiting, we really have to delve into that aspect. And now, asking the 5 whys, yes, that helped, but at the same time, we have to ask the 5 whys into what we can do to improve that process too. Why wasn't a question asked about what would be a typical day for a person in this role? Because these are scenarios that we as organizations or we as recruiters want to talk to our candidates about, on why they are looking for this type of position and how it would benefit them. So the 5 whys really is a great initiative approach into asking our candidates, our program managers, and basically the companies that we're partnered with on why are we looking for this person with this skill set, with this background, because this position can be different from what they have experience in. So the 5 whys are really essential in basically narrowing out circumstances that can happen later on where candidates or people that are looking to change career paths or people that are looking to gain more technical experience can delve into and say, okay, well, at least I was aware that these issues might occur if I had this career path, or if I have these skills, I might, look out for this position. So it's just a good interactive approach. Any thoughts on that? I know it's a
I
little.
I really, really like the 5 why approach, and it reminds me a lot of my philosophy classes that I took because
Mhm,
it's kind of the same method as getting to the bottom of anything really. You ask why, and then you uncover another level of something that you need to address. You figure that out, and then you ask why is that causing that, and eventually you get to some sort of bottom where you think it's the base of the problem. Sometimes it is, and sometimes there's another why beneath it, but in
mhm,
the end, you're pretty much analyzing the different levels of cause and effects, and
mhm.
I think it's a really, really good method to solving problems.
Right. And I saw there were so many articles on this, and the 5 why approach is basically it's a part of the Lean Sigma, the PMP program as well, which is a big, I mean, that's something that people get certified in, getting a project management certification. And that's a big initiative to learn about the 5 whys, asking the right questions on why we haven't met sales targets or why the business isn't doing so well. So a lot of companies strategize and use this technique to improve business. And with our recruiting, um, basically with recruiting, we can ask 5 whys for a lot of things, like why is it so hard to find skill sets that are hard to fill? Well, let's start. Well, are these skill sets, are people in this area, um, do they have these skill sets? Do they have this typical certification that's required? And that's where we really have to delve in and see, are we looking in the right direction, and
Yeah, and
really analyze.
hopefully organizations are listening. So, and I now that I know what the 5 whys are, and I learned something today, um, which is thank you for that. Uh, Part of the 5 whys. So, as a senior recruiter, one of the things that one of my challenges has constantly been requirements that come out, and I'm not sure who wrote the requirements. In fact, I have several of those jobs right now where I can find people fully competent to do the job, except they need a specific certification that, as far as I can determine, has nothing to do with the job that they're going to be doing. But someone wrote that requirement, and someone should have asked why. And I need 3 of those whys answered pretty soon, if you would. Thank you very much.
Right. And the 5 whys can relate to any type of problem. It can be, again, like we talked about, why is there a high turnover? And then also finding the right candidates for hard to fill positions. It's like, why is it so difficult? And kind of going with that approach, why is it so challenging to find the right candidate for hard to fill positions? Because these positions often require specialized skills or qualifications that are very difficult to find. Another question was that someone asked, why do new hires leave when they lack the necessary skills for the job? Because they may feel overwhelmed or unprepared, leading to job dissatisfaction. I mean, we've heard a lot of people who start and they thought that this job was just the best career path that they could have taken, but then once they start, they just feel overwhelmed and they feel unprepared, and then they're just not satisfied with their career growth there. So then they leave and then they find something else um, that sometimes is not even um, it's not even similar to what their background is in, but they have job satisfaction in that area. Um, the third question they ask is, why doesn't the recruitment process adequately assess qualifications for these positions? Because a lot of recruitment processes use generic criteria that don't match the specific requirements of hard to fill roles. Um, a lot of times it's very cutthroat and it's just like, okay, well, do you have experience here? Do you have a technical degree? Do you have experience doing such and such task? And it's just very generic. Um, and then another question they ask is, why does the recruitment process rely heavily on traditional interviews? Because traditional interviews are a common familiar method for evaluating candidates, but that shouldn't be the case. When we're interviewing for certain positions, we should kind of amp up and ask different questions relating to that position. So a lot of these answers I didn't agree with because a lot of companies don't do traditional interviews. And there's a lot of resistance to change in other companies. But I know for different positions, people are very companies are very skilled with asking specific questions on specific roles that candidate has done in the past, and how the candidate can assess certain situations to make them a good fit within that role.
And
Um,
sometimes traditions are tradition for a reason. There are several
right.
companies in recent years that
Mhm.
artificial intelligence. So they did away with resumes.
Mhm.
They had you fill out some forms, et cetera, et
Mhm.
cetera. They did away with interviews. They let the artificial intelligence actually make the hires. Oh, well, not make the hire, but make the candidate selection. And people were fairly miserable after that because it had some payoffs, but it just did not deliver on the promise. So sometimes tradition is tradition because it works most of the time.
And a lot of companies now have added behavioral interviews, which
I'm
does
yellow. A good color to be. I am like super yellow.
right. And there's a whole personality. I mean, that's probably another podcast we'll get into, but there's a whole personality measure as well on specific roles. Like if one person is a AB personality or if they're an alpha personality, then they require this type of, they would be a good fit for such and such position. So that's a different podcast, but we'll get
Yeah,
into
yeah. It's like
that.
me. I'm not an alpha, but I am a B plus.
Right.
Uh, and I mentioned I'm yellow. So there are some personality tests that are just amazing because one is a color test. University of
Right.
Phoenix came out with that 10, 15 years ago, and several others have adopted it. And what they found was just by taking a series of questions and choosing between four different colors, which color appeals to you? So you don't actually give the answer like, how many sheep do you see? Oh, green. Okay, what is that about? But what they found was amazingly, whether we're all like hypnotized at the moment and we just magically came up with the right answer, these colors tend to indicate temperament and some form of logic that, at least to some, seems very, very reliable. I know I'm working with a company right now. One of the first things they did is ask me to take a test, and it was all color based. All the answers were just colors. I'm
Right.
still
And
working
that
there almost 4 years later, so yellow is the answer, at least for me.
Right, and these are great like alternative approaches for color coding or personality tests to basically assess an individual and see if they would be a good fit for that organization or that particular job. And again, there's just a fear of the unknown a lot of times with companies and the belief that the effectiveness of traditional methods is far more surpasses um, any type of alternative approaches, and that becomes lack of awareness about alternative approaches. So I think companies have done a better job with assessing individuals, but not always. Some job categories or labor categories are written in a way where it's just bland. It's just not. It's very traditional in the way they've written it, and it doesn't bring about anything exciting or challenging. And sometimes it's hard for candidates to fit into that role when they first start, and employees sometimes feel like they're being challenged or they're just not satisfied. They applied for a position, but it's not the position that they would have liked for their new career or starting off their new career with that position. So I think the why questions specifically help recruiters. It helps us definitely find candidates. It helps us find the best approach to find candidates for a specific project or specific program. And I think also another thing that they brought up is that it's always, it's not always, it's good to do that approach. But for instance, like in my 15 years of experience, I remember I worked for a company where they were hiring mobile app developers, and it was not traditional. The interviews were not traditional. They were very, and this was 10 years ago, and it was very different. The interviews were virtual, and that there were two sets of interviews. One was virtual, and one was a behavioral interview. And then the third part of the interview was coming in and actually um, basically showing the program manager on how their their app basically works. So I thought that was a really cool technique in finding a good fit for a mobile app developer. It wasn't a traditional interview. I mean, they looked at their degree, they looked at their certifications, and they looked at their experience, but then they asked them to, on how to develop apps, and they asked them to show how their app actually functions. So I thought that was a really cool way, a new approach in interviewing a candidate with a very niche skill set.
Let me just jump in with two things and uh, non-traditional. I've actually seen one company, they're hiring for IT desktop technicians. These are people who try to figure out why your computer and doesn't connect and it doesn't work. The interview was the computer was all in parts in a box, and you had 1 hour to put it together. I mean, computers, right? You can fix things, right? If you can do that, you can put the computer together. The second thing was on the cyber side, they introduced a series of issues, and you were judged based upon the speed at which you found issues, not tell me about your certification, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, okay, we've read your resume. We think that you're probably appropriate. The server over here is got issues. Tell me what the issues are. Tick, start now.
Yeah, that's a really useful approach because it quickly identifies candidates that are actually qualified for the job, and you don't have to try to prove yourself with qualifications on paper that might actually not prove to be that useful in the actual job. So I feel like that's a really good way to filter out people that are suitable and ones that aren't.
So what we got next here?
We have market value and adapting to change. So tell us what you have to say about it.
Okay. And this is for a good friend of mine, Al Alborn. He and I talked about this a couple weeks ago, and he encouraged me to lean into the camera and say, are you getting the amount of money that you should be getting in your paycheck? And so that takes me to, are you? There are ways to know. And I want to give you a couple quick and dirty. So you're probably going to meet a recruiter, and it depends upon your industry. If you're an hourly worker, you'll find those jobs. And by hourly worker, I mean the job you is defined by the hour. So you may make $18 to $22 per hour. Employers will often state that. But for mid-level and even some entry, but mid-level and senior level, often the salaries are not given out there. They're not published, although that is a growing trend. So now, like in California, Maryland, a couple other places, you have to show the salary range. And in some places, that range has to be more accurate. In some other places, like Oregon just passed a law that you can no longer ask someone, do you have a driver's license? Unless they actually are going to drive something. But we're getting more of these transparency laws. And on salary, uh, in many places, though, there is no transparency. So you're going to meet a recruiter or you're going to meet a program manager. Probably you'll meet the recruiter first who says, how much money are you looking for? You need an answer. You can't say, well, I'd like more than I'm making now, or and if you give a number that's too low, it tells me you're clueless. If you give me a number that's much too high, you're either greedy or you're potentially still clueless. So you really need to have a number. And the good news is these numbers can be gotten fairly quickly. I want to talk about two places where you can get these numbers, actually three places. One, you can go to ZipRecruiter salaries, and you can put in, I am an accountant in Alexandria, Virginia. Tell me what the salary looks like. Now, on the ZipRecruiter salary thing, I'm not really fond of it. That would give you a quick number that I don't consider really accurate. You can't put in the amount of years of experience you have. They don't ask you what degree you have, or even if it's required. If you're in government, they don't ask you about certain certifications and all. So the ZipRecruiter makes it easy to find this app. So it will give you an idea as to approximately how much you should be making. What I recommend is salary.com. I use the paid version of salary.com called Comp Analyst, and I use the free version, which is at salary.com. In there, you will find that all the jobs are defined by Department of Labor standards, such as your level 1, and the levels are levels 1 through 7. They're defined by years, skills. You can actually play around with putting in what's your education. Are you expected to supervise people? I find salary.com numbers are generally reliable for those not starting out, for those who already have some experience, and for those who are fully experienced but not at the upper management level. I often have upper management types say, oh, I know someone who makes this much, and salary.com shows the chances of me making that slim. Well, there's not many managers at the top, are there? Managers often are chosen for a lot of reasons, and it's not always because they're the best at what they do. Sometimes they're good managers, but the upper 10% of salaries sometimes can range $100,000 difference between what someone makes and someone else makes. So the upper 10%, good luck on that. I can't help you there. But the other folks in life who have 2+ years of experience, I find salary.com is very, very useful. And part of the reason it's useful is that the salary information comes from over 400 companies, major companies, which actually contribute the information from the paychecks they give out each month. The third way really is to go to somewhere like glass doors, glass windows, glass. Someone help me out.
Glassdoor,
Or
yeah,
Glass
Glassdoor.
doors, that's it. I mean, who walks into glass doors? Anyway, where people will rate their company and they'll also show salary ranges, and you can see how many people work there. Those numbers are generally very, I would say, I'm going to give that one a B+ of reliability as well. Always have a number, and if you're not quite sure, be within 20,000. 10 to 20,000, and I believe you can do that accurately. If you send me your resume and you're a professional, if you send me your resume and tell me what you want to be, something specific, and where that job is, and how many years experience required, I'll tell you, I would give you a number to within, I believe, $3,000 as to what you should be asking for. I know program managers, you don't like that. You should send me money for not to be on this program. But anyway, send it to Bill Golden at billgoldenjobs.com, and with your resume attached. I want that resume. And I will send you an email back that tells you to within $3,000 based upon job, years of experience, and location as to what I think you should be making.
all right, so we have identifying your market value. What about adapting to change? How do people do it?
Adapting to change. Whoa, as if we haven't had enough of that. So, adapting to change. A couple things that I would just encourage everyone to remember is we really are in a state of constant change. Last week, an argument broke out on one of the technical groups. Someone wanted to know how senior software developer could be defined as someone with 5 years of experience. The argument then broke out to over 800 participants going back and forth, not always politely. The bottom line is software development itself has changed. And you may have 10 to 15 years of experience, but if you do not have the tool set, a current tool set, or you do not have a collection of tools, then your 10 to 15 years of experience doesn't mean anything. So if I'm looking for someone that has some unique tool sets and they have 5 years of experience, that is probably senior, which upsets a lot of people. And this goes back to the compensation thing. Change. How much are you worth? I don't care how much you made in your last paycheck. If you change jobs and there are different requirements, the amount of money that you're worth just changed. But we see change across the board, and some of the things that I would tell you about change is, especially with your market value, if you're going, you want to be remote, there are companies that have put a 15% surcharge on that, i.e., if I were to pay you $100 to show up, but you want to work remote, some companies cut your pay by 15%. Some companies don't. So you need to be aware that there are companies debating that mix of how much are you worth if you don't have to come to work to go to work. There's that. There is the ever-changing technology. I mentioned there's over 600 cyber certifications, where you may have a Security Plus, you may have some of the others, but now we need Security Plus CE, Common Computing Environment, because you may be using a piece of technology, but this piece of technology now interacts with many other things, and due to wireless, due to Bluetooth, due to all kinds of things, we are in a common environment, a common computing environment. My smartwatch is amazing. I'm not going to tell you the maker of it, but they could do better on the battery life. This is a horrible watch. It only gets 1 hour. But my wife's watch gets almost 7 hours, and it's a Garmin. Uh, but so change, technology, the fact that I can actually get I get all my cell phone calls, I get my voicemails, I can play YouTube music, which is why the battery life is so horrible. If I'm lost, I can push a button and it will tell me exactly where I am. And if that means nothing to me, I can push another button and it will call for help. It's an amazing watch as long as I have a solar panel with me. But this does affect many kinds of jobs. You have folks now that are, San Francisco has introduced self-driving taxi cabs just recently. Arizona, Nevada, a couple other places have self-driving trucks. So the roles of logistics and truck drivers, the various technologies are changing. I would tell you every career field is open to change, and artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, I don't care what you do, you need to learn about artificial intelligence. I live near, in Virginia, I live near to one of the highest tech landfills in the nation. And one of the technologies is they stopped taking certain kinds of things in the landfill. The answer is there's another landfill not far away. They use artificial technology that is able to take more, because now artificial technology uses all of these LED cameras, et cetera, and it's able to tell the difference between a soft plastic, a hard plastic, a recyclable, a non-recyclable, certain kinds of glass. And literally, it is looking and reaching out, and it's got all these little arms here. It's like a terrible movie, a horrible movie. But it's Halloween, so we're good with that. But it's got artificial intelligence, and it's doing the work of like 20, 30 people. And it has now made recycling less expensive again. The cost of that technology is about $1 million per year. But when you think about how many people, and you got to pay, you got to pay them. You get turnover is high. You have to pay them benefits. You have to contribute to 401k. That $1 million suddenly to replace 30 or so people is a good deal. So artificial intelligence will come in and will affect many different career fields. ESPN recently let many of its writers go because they were able to, artificial intelligence was able to take much of the data coming in real time and create stories about sports. Anyway, that's the short version. Offer me coffee and cookies and we can talk for hours.
That, that's really great insight, because even to find out the landfills, or it's such a like specific thing, and to actually look through different types of soil, and if AI has that covered, that's pretty amazing. Think about what it can do to our manufacturing industry, um, just with our farming industry, everything. I mean, our agriculture industry, that's like,
Farming. I just saw this wonderful use of AI. I can share the video if you want.
Mhm.
I love some of these things. They could not find enough people to work on the farms. So you've probably seen the very long water sprinklers that are in
Yeah,
arms
yeah.
that go out over the land, etc. They have now attached laser beams and
Oh,
artificial
wow.
intelligence. So as the arms go out, it goes, oh, we. It's
Oh,
amazing.
wow.
Yeah.
That's,
And it's
yeah, I
affordable.
mean, AI is gonna take over everything. It's gonna take over like data entry, like bookkeeping. I know, like assembly line work, there's a lot of that in the Midwest, um, where you can already see that. Um, and like just root, I mean, I know with retail and cashier jobs it still hasn't, but well, actually it has.
It
Never mind,
has. Yeah.
self checkout. Everywhere you see self checkout systems and automated retail. I mean, I think people go towards the self checkout systems more than they do to an actual someone at the cash register. They'd rather just
Wait,
go.
but
Way more.
Yeah, so AI is definitely taking over everything. I mean, it still hasn't taken over recruiting all the way, because you still need a person to help you through benefits. I mean, someone in AI definitely, I mean, AI can definitely take over that, but I think a lot of people like a person, a face value. When they're looking for a job, they want to be able to talk to someone. They want to be able to ask the questions and not just an AI robot, you know. We do have AI robots. I know when you call Verizon and you ask, and they're like, just give me a person to talk to, and
Right.
people get frustrated. So, so yeah, I can see how AI will take over a lot of different aspects.
The good news is it appears that humans are adapting to AI, which is
Mhm.
why we actually have trouble finding people to hire
Mhm.
because AI at the moment is being developed in ways to cooperate with people, to make them more productive, to actually free up some people so they can do other things. And we are finding new ways to for people to work, which is part of the theme of constant change. I know a couple years ago, uh, when McDonald's began introducing self-order kiosk within the McDonald's, you heard people say, "Oh, those people making $15 an hour, they're going to regret asking for that." But what they found was the McDonald's kiosk where people could make orders themselves actually created so much business that most of the McDonald's ended up hiring more people to work making stuff and I'm making 17 and 18 now. So you've got to stay focused. Change is change is just going to happen. You can't stop change. But what you got to do is try and stay focused and move with the change. Ask why. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you. Ask why, because why and how will this affect me? How and why will it affect other people? We just saw the United Auto Workers kind of come to terms with some things. Part of their question was, what role will AI have, and can how can that threaten my job, and what guarantees that I get that I'm not going to bust buns for the next 4 years, and suddenly my job hanging doors on a car or whatever you do disappears because some robot comes up and nudges you out of the way and says, "Hi, I'm R2D3956 and I hang doors." Yeah, what is that about? So the good news is at least AI is complementing change, creating change, but complementing the humans involved, and it is making us more productive uh, in what we do. But it is causing people also to have to change careers. That's the writers at ESPN.
All right.
And
Well,
and
do
I
you want to go
think,
ahead?
yeah, and I think going back, as the five whys, as the five whys of why you want to start a new career or go into another career, go into another facet of your career where you want to see growth. So you can use a lot of these tools. You can use the five whys and then also use the tools that Bill had mentioned about looking up the market salary, looking that up and seeing, what are you worth in this time, and with the background that you have or the qualifications that you have, what is your worth? And these are just great tools to help your search be more um, successful. But
I
definitely,
completely agree.
right. But definitely check us out at GTSC Career Search, talentsearch.com, and you can contact us. You can contact me. I'm always on LinkedIn at Jawed, SJAWED at GTSC.com.
I'll leave everybody's LinkedIn in the description in case you want to reach out to us, and you can click our links. We all make posts about it to our weekly hiring events from 10 to 2 every single Wednesday, unless it's a holiday. So feel free to click on that. And thank you for listening or watching.
Great. Thank you.